Alright you guys, quickie for today. This is actually a 5-minute blitz game, and I know that my own rule for December is to play no blitz. But this wasn't for money, this was just for fun this morning. I didn't feel in the mood to play a rapid game, and I did fancy a game. So, taking a brief break from no Blitzember. And this is actually the second game that I played against this character. The first game I had the black pieces, and he played the same kind of setup both times. But this is the second game, and he plays the modern defence, similar to like the King's Indian setup. Not quite sure what the difference is. But I completely dismantle him in about 2 minutes flat. So if you struggle with how to play against the modern defence, which is, you know, the fianchettoed King's Bishop Knight out here, then check it out. So the idea of the modern approach to chess, right? And it doesn't mean it's, you know, it's better or anything, is that, or hyper-modern, you'll hear, is that instead of competing directly for the centre from the start, like with your D and E pawns and so on, that you fianchetto 1 or 2 bishops and try and get control over the centre that way, but maybe later on in the game. So that's the general idea. Anyway, to the game. So e4, and we're hoping for a Vienna or something like that, but no, the modern defence. Okay, so we're going to get the bishop out here, obviously, and knight to here. Now, key thing, if your opponent has a pawn on e4, you don't put your knight straight out, okay? So I play d4, he fianchettos the bishop, he's attacking this pawn, it's defended once, no problem. Knight to f3, adds a second defender anyway, and moves one of my kingside minor pieces, getting ready to castle. And now the knight comes out, right? This is inaccurate, because it enables your opponent to play e5 with tempo. Now the knight has to move, and now even c4 is an option, yeah? But instead I decide to play bishop c4, which is doing two things. It's hitting the knight, so he's going to have to respond again to what I just did. So he doesn't get to do what he wants to do, which is castle his king, etc. So he has to do something. And he moves the knight, and I just drop the bishop back to b3, keeping it on this a2 g8 diagonal, which happens to be where the king is going to head. All right, so king puts himself here, now pinning this pawn, and now I develop my other bishop. So now I've got 3 defenders on this pawn. So what I'm thinking now is, now that he's gone this way, which he was always going to do, I'm thinking, wouldn't it be great to develop my pieces somehow, castle queenside, get my rooks here, and start a pawn storm up the king side of the board, right? That's my style. So now he plays d5, and I have the opportunity here to capture en passant, but I don't think there's any benefit. You know, I'd rather have blocked off pawns here if I'm going to be castling this way. You know, his knight's already there in the way of the b pawn, that's all right. So knight c3, and now c6, which is pretty pointless. I mean, yes, he's preventing my knight from coming to this square. Yes, he's defending this pawn, but he's also taking away the natural development square for that knight. Knight's now going to have to come around this way. Yeah, not a great move, I don't think. So now I play queen d2. So common idea here, line up the queen and the bishop, drop the bishop in here, and eradicate this guy. Right, and this bishop's doing a very important job because it's the only piece that's protecting these dark squares. Okay, having moved this pawn forwards, black has good control over the light squares, but poor control over the dark squares. So that's this bishop's job. Now, if I can eliminate that bishop, could make life easier. Now he blinks, f5. So yeah, again, not entirely convinced. So yeah, I do have the opportunity again to capture en passant, but I decide not to. Now it's time to castle, right? So I want to get my rooks over. I want to drop my bishop in here, and I want to throw Harry, maybe Gary, Freddie up the board. Okay, another pawn move, right? So he's now shoring up. He's got this immense light squared pawn structure, right? But this bishop's useless. This knight's not great. I mean, where's this knight going to go? Here? Then it can't progress. It's a bit odd. Okay, so now I throw in the bishop. So first things first, get rid of the bishop. His knight comes to a6, right? Useless. So I grab the bishop, king recaptures. Now, I do make an inaccuracy around here because I do have an idea at some point to drop this bishop down here, but that's not yet. Okay, so h4. Off goes Harry, looking to mess things up and cause some trouble. Again, my opponent responds with another pawn move, right? So 6 pawns off the mark now, right? Whereas I've only moved 1, 2, 3 off my second rank. So he's ending up with a lot of space behind his pawn line. Okay, so if I can get in there, then it could be bad. Now I've got a nice outpost there for my knight. This bishop's doing an important job of defending that pawn right now. It's the only thing it's doing. So now I think, well, my other knight's not doing anything on here. Why don't we bring it in? Maybe even capture pawns, we'll see. Now his knight maneuvers around, and now my idea is I want to drop this bishop down to here, right? And play g4. Because with g4, yeah, if this pawn takes, then I can push Harry up the board, and I've also got a queen, maybe backed up with a rook, ready to jump in, okay? If my bishop's here and he captures with this one, again, he's still opening up space around his king. My queen's still ready to jump in, stuff like that. So he pushes a pawn, I'm unimpressed. But now I think I squeezed the trigger too early because I'd forgotten that I hadn't put my bishop here yet, right? So now he captures with the g-pawn and my knight's under attack. So I plonk my knight on that nice outpost on g5. It's not really what I wanted to do because it's kind of blocking off my queen, right? However, I do notice that after this knight move to here, talk about what's changed on the board, something very significant, right? Remember, this bishop had one job. The knight has just messed up that job. Okay, this pawn is now hanging, and what's more, it's a royal fork square. Okay, so pawn takes on d4, my opponent misses it entirely and finds himself royally forked. Okay, king comes across, I grab the queen with check, he takes back, so I'm +5 at this point. And now it's just a case of sweeping up, really. So I've got queen takes there, or pawn takes. I've got over 3 minutes on the clock. But in between move, nice in between move, bishop takes d5 with check. Okay, king moves. Now throw in a check. I don't even have to take this pawn. Might even take this pawn with a knight at some point. Yeah, especially if that would come with check, which it's not going to. King retreats, queen takes g6 check, and checkmate. There you go. So 23 moves, a real dismantling, I would say, of the modern. We'll do a quick look at the game review and see what could have been handled better. 86% in a 5-minute blitz game. I'm very happy with 86%. Very happy indeed. Okay, 3 inaccuracies on my part. So this is, I'm sure we're going to go, okay, best move, obviously, right? So knight there, it says that's good, but it's not brilliant because there's an obvious response. Also, putting my pawns on the dark square diagonal, which kind of blunts that bishop to some degree. Knight moves here. This is an excellent move. Even better could have been h4 now. Ah. Okay, we do this. Knight moves. Bishop drops back. Best move. Good. Castles. This is good. Better. I guess because my bishop's guarding these squares, eh? So actually, this is quite forcing. Yeah, I didn't see that at all. But That wasn't my plan. Okay, this is an accuracy, yeah. This is good. Better would have been castle's king side. Okay, but again, that wasn't my plan. Okay, so I bring knight out. This move that I didn't really get is okay. Queen there is good. Better would have been. Again, he wants me to castle, but that's not my plan. Okay, that's a blunder. It's a blunder, but I missed something. Because it's got me 3.8 here and then it drops down. So what did I do? Now I castled long, but what I should have done is h4 now. Why? Don't get it. Don't matter. You know, it's okay not to get it. Because we're not computers and we don't worship the fish god. That's a mistake? Yeah. You know, he should really have maybe put his bishop on that square. Okay, and now, inaccuracy. I no longer have a winning position. Why not? h4, yeah? Okay, well, h4 comes. This, another inaccuracy. What's it want? It really wants me to throw Harry up the board. Don't worry, Harry has his moment. Chill. Okay, well that's it. So, you know, nothing really to worry about there. Yeah, so if you find yourself facing the modern defence, you know, remember this idea of removing the bishop. Opposite side castling is always fun, and get ready to throw your pawns up the board. And lots of fun. So it's not really one to be feared too much. And also remember that your opponent needs to play really, if we go back to the start, here, he needs to play d6 before bringing the knight out, so that in case of this, you've got pawn takes, and then pawn can't really recapture because we trade queens and the king has to move. So yeah, so this would have been a better move, I think, at this point. Yeah, so and that's what the computer says. d6, preventing e5. Okay, before you bring out your knight. So just a few little tips to remember if you ever face the modern defence, which you are likely to do. I hope that's been useful for you guys. Thanks for watching. See you soon.